Monday. You are with the Skeinz Diaries. Today is Monday, the 25th of January. It is episode 65. How was your weekend? I hope everyone had a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Sorry I'm a few minutes late. Shop has been incredibly busy the first hour this morning, so I've just got tied up in there. And loads of people here, actually. A lot of them are visitors to Hawke's Bay. They came, we had 660 here on Saturday, as well as the Bridgepath Wine Festival. And of course, to all you who live in the Wellington region, happy anniversary day. And in case you're wondering, yes, we are open because it's no regular old day here for us. So for all of you who are on holiday today, have got that extra day, do come in and see us before you hit the road and head home. We're open and we're here and we would love to see you. I had a great weekend. Just hanging out and just sort of chilling, which is absolutely awesome and something I totally love to do. And the big excitement for us, you may have seen on your social media, if you had a look on Instagram, is on Friday. I popped into work on Friday because on Friday our new yarn has finally arrived from India, which we had been waiting for. In fact, we had ordered and organised before the flight and the pulse, but due to the delays of shipping a flight and pulse, that landed into the Napier port, so we were able to get that quite quickly, whereas this other stuff landed into the ports of Auckland. And if anyone knows about what's going on, the situation there at the moment, it is super slow. So it has been sort of in New Zealand waters for a while, but we finally got our hands on it on Friday, and that is just so exciting. So I'm not going to show you the warehouse. The warehouse is just bedlam at the moment. Such a busy weekend with Black Pearl. So many of you snapped up that Black Pearl while it was on special. It has been discontinued. Now, that's not to say it's permanently discontinued. You know what we're like. Sometimes these things do come back after a few years, but definitely not going to be back for a while. And it's not that it didn't receive the love. Don't get me wrong. It was a yarn that many of you loved, but it is a recycled yarn. So it's one that does require having enough fibre to be able to make it. And at the moment, we're not getting enough fibre through to be able to do it. So we thought we would discontinue it, give it a little bit of a holiday, and that allows us to have a little bit more space to be able to bring you some of these new things, which is fantastic. So what has arrived is a range extension. It's very similar actually to what we did with our flight and our pulse. So we have developed, we've got another relationship with the mill in Rajasthan, and they have been amazing. This has been so, so lovely. And they have, we've put them in touch with our fibre supply. They have sourced the same fibre in this yarn that we use here in New Zealand. And what I'm talking about is our vintage. Everybody loves our vintage. We love our vintage. And vintage is our range of DK yarn made with classic New Zealand wool in a fourfold construction. So it's a lovely smooth yarn, but it's not treated. It's not machine washable, which makes it a yarn that is wonderful for colour work. You can felt with it. You can do so many things, but it's still really soft to wear against the skin. I'm particularly passionate about vintage because it's the very, very first yarn I ever worked on in new product development when I came to the mill. So it's my firstborn, as it were, from the yarn perspective. So it holds a very dear place in my heart. And I loved it because the precursor yarn that that inspired this yarn is what I did all my baby knits in for my first child, and then when number 2 came along, vintage had already been created, so I did a lot of his knits in vintage. So I mean, I knit. To be fair, look, I had baby born at the end, one in April and the end of May. So I did pretty much have babies heading into the winter season so they could wear those heavier knits. But vintage was my go-to. Absolutely loved it. Still do. And the reason for that, as well as the fact that the colours are amazing, they're very contemporary in nature, is because the yarn has that perfect balance, I believe, for being soft enough to be able to wear and use for things like children, babies, infants and the like, because it's a beautiful smooth yarn, but it also wears exceptionally well. And that is, I think, quite incredible. It uses classic New Zealand crossbed, but we source it to a certain micron count, so it uses a finer micron than what we have in our Perrindale or our Southlander or Cozy and Snug. So it is actually a finer fibre, but it's not so fine that you start running into really quick and excessive pilling issues. And if you do get a little bit of fluff or pill there, they come up into such a form that a wee sweater stone or a basic deep pillar, or even just one of those combs will just whip it away straight away and still have it looking good as the day you took it off the needles. And I'm a bit naughty, I didn't grab a vintage project that I've got, but I've worn a number of projects, as you know, here in vintage that I have, and I mean, they look as good as the days they came off the needles, and many of them are, 10 plus years old. So for me, it is just a yarn I adore. So why did we take it beyond what we're doing here? Quite simply because we wanted to extend the range. I've had vintage range extensions on the new product development board now for years, literally for years, and often it will get moved around and shunted in priority to other things. The mill since COVID has been so exceptionally busy getting yarn out for other great New Zealand yarn makers that we wanted to make sure that we were still available for them with the mill. So in order for me to get the stuff that I wanted to get through for Skeinz, I needed to think a little bit off, outside of the square, or abroad, as it is in this case. So very often, you'll notice that we make things here in New Zealand, but we use fibre that comes from abroad because we can't source it here. Well, this is actually a reverse on that. We've got New Zealand fibre that we've got growing in New Zealand on our fantastic farms that I've contracted back to another mill to have it made while we were away. So there's still everything, the whole process was still driven by us. The designs, the labels, everything was all driven by us. We just had it milled in this case in India. They've done a great job. Both mills that we've dealt with they're really fantastic, similar to ourselves, really neat ethos, that great people that we've been dealing with. It's been a real joy. And what we've gone and done is we've gone and created a vintage extension. Now, all of these, that's why I came in on Friday, all of us, honestly, you should have seen Claire and I rummaging through all these cartons to get out a single ball of all the new shades, plus the new ranges to get all of these up to our photographer. So hopefully they will be landing on her doorstep this morning. But what we wanted to do is we wanted to get this range extension. And one of the things that, there's two things that happened. One, we wanted to get some new colours into the range. And two, we wanted to be able to bring you a different weight. And one of those weights that we wanted to bring you is a 10 ply. We've had Lodge, and Lodge is coming back. We've got we've had some delays on the tweedy nippy thing that we use for Lodge. It's another story. I won't go into that right now. However, we wanted to get a standard 10 ply into our range. 10 ply worsted weight. We wanted it to be something that would consistently give you that 18 stitch tension, which so many designs that are published, particularly out of North America, have. Now, we know that a number of you have been able to stretch and get that gauge quite readily using Southlander DK. Southlander DK is at the heavier end of DK, and because of its lovely sort of grip and rustic nature, you can sort of push to that. But it is, when we're talking text count, it is of what we call a 495 by 3. We were wanting something in that sort of 600 count area, which is a classic 10 ply. And that's what we've gone and created. So what we've gone and done in this range is we have a 10 ply range, which is all our current vintage colours plus some newbies. And the newbies will be across both 8 ply and 10 ply. And For those that, I mean, a lot of you still prefer to buy New Zealand made, so you want to buy something that has been milled by us, and that's cool. That doesn't worry us. To make life easy for you, we've gone and created the labels as such so you can easily identify which is which. So we're going to be calling the new one Vintage Abroad, and we are going to be redoing our regular vintage labels too, but the new one is going to be called Vintage Abroad. So then that way you know that it's the New Zealand fibre but done elsewhere. And as you can see, it is gorgeous. This is one of the new colours. This one is called turmeric, and it's just more of a sort of, it sits in that zone between mustard and citrus. There's this sort of fine little line that sits there, and it's a great colour. And the one I had on the social media that so many of you absolutely loved was this one here. This one is called turmeric. Oh, not turmeric. This one's paprika. This one is called paprika. Look at that. Oh, fantastic. I mean, yes, these, as you know, these are autumnal colours I love. What we did with these is all these new colours are completely outside our regular design spun colour palette. So we have gone and had these all labbed for us. We wanted to push the envelope and actually create colours that we didn't have in our existing library, so we can actually bring something that is a little bit different and a little bit fresh to what we've got in the range. And all of them have been designed in these tones, so they should work across all the colours in the range. Now, I've only just gone and grabbed 4 just to give you an idea, and obviously the other one we've thrown in there is this lovely warm natural cream. We haven't had a natural cream in vintage. We've got porcelain, which is sort of almost, and we've got a new one too called tea. So we've got 3 different types of creams in there. Whereas this one's called eggshell, and it's a classic sort of an eggshell shade. So we've thrown that in there quite deliberately because we wanted to make sure that we had enough contrasts for you, because everything's about colour work at the moment. So then if you're wanting to do some colour work and you need contrast, like these 2 here, which is navy and eggshell, navy from our existing range, and then you also need to make sure you've got your pops of colour, and this range will do it. And the beautiful thing is we've got all of these shades, most of them I think all of them, across both now 10 ply and DK. These will all be coming to you for February. So what I thought I would do today is talk a little bit about getting prepared for some of these. And I've gone and had a little look at just a quick little lash at some patterns that we could potentially have a look at. And let me just bear with me, because I was on another webinar before and I literally, so I was a bit late too. I was a little bit late. So what I thought I would do is give you some pattern ideas, stuff you may already have in your queue, or things that you could get in your queue that you can start looking at doing with this yarn. And the first one that I wanted to show you is one that we have a sample with in the shop. I know that it's one that you guys all are familiar with, and that of course is the Weekender. Now the Weekender is again Angela Mowry. We've done our sample in the store in Southland Oatmeal, and it's a fantastic rustic throw over reverse stocking stitch cardigan. She covers this classic 18 stitch tension, block tension, using a worsted 10 ply. She uses this yarn a lot. We knitted our sample in the Southlander DK and it worked great. But to be honest with you too, I think the slightly heavier yarn will actually just give it a little bit more structure and hold it there. Sometimes Andrea can be known to do some really interesting interpretations on gauge. I know Ethan and I alluded to that the other day. In this particular instance, she hasn't. This is quite classic. And I think that this, if you're looking for a pattern or a really sort of pop over, easy sweater with good sizing, I think she's got sizing all the way out to, let's have a quick look. Yeah, finished measurements 72 inches. So that's, you know, that's a pretty good amount of positive ease in there. So you can build a lot of positive ease in there. I know that you can. It's one of those designs that's easily able to do modifications, particularly through the trunk, if you want to build in more ease there as well, like I do on a regular basis. And it's one I also know that so many of you have already sitting in your Ravelry queues that you want to knit, or you've been in here and seen it and you thought, yes, that's something that I definitely want to knit. And I actually think that the yarns that we have, these vintage abroad yarns, would be perfect for this. Absolutely perfect. You're looking at 837 to 1700 meters. This is 82 meters per ball. So I actually have it. I did. So you're looking at ostensibly just over a pack, 10 balls for the smaller size, through to about just under 20 balls for the larger size, which actually, to be honest with you, is pretty much within Kui. If you were to do a DK sweater, sort of an oversized DK sweater, it's around the same in terms of volume, which is fantastic. So that is definitely one suggestion that I would recommend. Now, the other pattern that I thought that you guys should also consider, and I know I'm heading down what I call the greatest hits here, but I'm also going to bring up Love Note. And there's two reasons I'm going to bring up Love Note. One is because this one has been so incredibly popular, and I've just pulled up one there. I think that one is just a straight DK. They have used DK as their suggested yarn if you were to just substitute and not do the lace weight and mohair combination. Now, I have mentioned before the gauge they have. This is 16 stitches, and they're wanting to sort of, it's designed to be sort of a lighter, more ethereal fabric, right? One of the things that I can tell you with this, having knitted it in DK, I love it. I thrash it, and I've done mine in Cove. Is one of the things that I did discover that has driven me nuts with it is that because the gauge is actually quite relaxed for that yarn, that I do need to be careful on it not to catch or snag it, number one. Two, I also need to be really careful around pilling. It will pill. Now, as many of you know, that doesn't actually faze me terribly much. I've got multiple things for depilling. With that particular Cove, the sweater stone honestly just deals to it beautifully. However, for some people that is more of an issue. I actually think in Love Note, the vintage will actually, this vintage 10 ply will be a really good alternative yarn into that. It will get you closer to that gauge, much closer to that gauge with those needles, and a better cover factor in the fabric. It will give you more stability through the lace yoke, so that will actually hold and sit well. You will actually have a smoother fabric that will be less likely to distort, and it will also be less likely to pill. So if you haven't yet knit a Love Note, but it is one that you have been sort of wanting to do, but you've been concerned about the DK and you didn't want to go to the weight of a 12 ply. We've actually, one of our staff actually didn't do Love Note, but they knitted Ranunculus, which is a very similar styled pattern, but knitted to the same gauge in a 12 ply. She loves it, looks fantastic, but as she said, the downside with it is it's a pattern or a design in 12 ply. She gets gauge bang on, but she said it's a very heavy to wear item, so she can only, for us here in the Bay, wear it on the coldest days. So this is where I think this yarn will be fantastic, is that it will sit in between. It will give you a fabric that won't be as dense and as heavy, and it will still give you all the features that you know and love in a design like that, without some of the hassles that you get with it. So if you've got Love Note on your list and you're wanting to actually do that, I would, and you're wanting to do it in a single yarn, I think this Vintage Abroad could be another really great option for you. Now, the third pattern I wanted to show you, and again, greatest hits. Oh, yes, I know. Okay, let's do this way, shall we? Oh, actually, no, we'll do it this way. I know I should have queued this up beforehand, sorry. I've been here since 6:30 and I've been absolutely on the go. Right, there's a few actually here. This was the other one I wanted. I wanted to show you the Nanil chip, but this is another one I wanted to show you. Now, this is Tecumseh. And you're saying, well, Marie, why am I showing you this? This isn't a DK. Well, I'm showing you this because this will be coming in a DK. This design was one I know a number of you did in Southlander. It looked fantastic in Southlander, but it's also one that I think will look really, really fantastic in this. And I mean, look at that. Just if we jump to here, there you go. There's your combination right there, or if you wanted to go that way, you could go that way. It is certainly a piece of colour work that would look brilliant in that. And as I said, this is the template that I'm holding up, but remember we are doing these also in a DK as well. And the other design, which I think is an absolute sitter, actually the Sedolna, because I think, Sedolna, yeah, so she's done this in a DK as well. All of those colors, and the range of colors is going to be so great. Honestly, you're going to be spoiled for choice. This is the other reason why we did what we did, because we wanted to, sorry, and let me go here, there we go. And the other one I wanted to show you in here is, and let's go down to, because as we all know, there it is. Boom. Is our, actually, and I'm going to show you this one here because this is a really good example of it, is the Nanil Chick Swat Show. And it's one, as you know, that I've worked on. I absolutely loved it. It works fantastically in DK. It looks great. And the other beautiful thing about what we're doing with vintage is you should be able to, especially in the DK, mix and match back with Flight or Pulse. Even though they're merinos, they're still actually spun. The DKs are actually spun to exactly the same count. That has been quite deliberate. And we've done that quite deliberately because by spinning everything to the same count, it then means that when you're doing things, color work like this, you now have this massive palette of colors to choose from. So I'm just picking up, this is the Ripple, I'm going to show you this in a minute, that I'm working on at the moment, but probably not the best example of what we got here, but I mean, that's with the eggshell. I mean, if you wanted to be truly radical, you could do something like this, but it just, and there's the navy, obviously, there is no navy in the other. It just means that you're able to actually mix and match when you come to do color work. And I mentioned this particular pattern the other day because in this one you could actually, and just looking at the image that I've got on the screen, I mean that uses the navy, you could actually have the eggshell in there, you could actually have the turmeric in there, and then, now this is not the best colored example to use, but the light blue that is in there, you could actually pop in one of these pulse yarns, and I would pop in like the Flow or the Quake, which has got a little bit of green in there, but you could put in the Pulse where she's got the light blue and actually have that as a shifting piece of color against those three colors as your standard sort of color point. So by doing this, it's allowing you to actually really let your creative color genius out, or genie out of the bottle, and actually have a really, really good play. So start having a look at your library and see what is there and see what you think might actually catch your fancy. Now, to that end, before I get sidetracked, I'm going to let you know this now. Oh, there we go. I'm going to let you know this now. Stitch in Summer. Obviously last week in January, finishes this week. we're going to do something very special. And because you guys are watching the video, I get to tell you now, because your reward is that Stitch in Summer is going to be a combo deal. Starts on Tuesday, and it's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So a 3-day combo deal in the middle of the week. So that's nice and easy. And the combo is going to be, I